Одна из ключевых тем форума Positive Hack Days 11.
One of the key topics of PhD conference is information independence. And let's talk about this with Maria Zakharova
Добрый день.
from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the Russian Federation. Thank you very much, Maria, for joining us at PhD at the conference. Well, it's weird to come to the studio to people who are in the business of the digital. We changed all formats in the past 2 years, including TV formats. In the past, the TV picture used Skype communication rarely, but now you can't imagine the world without it. Really, even the top government officials are talking to each other via internet and the various apps. So this feels a retro to me. Skype is convenient, but it's soulless to my liking. You see the person remotely, and you can't really impart all of the emotions, and everything. What's happening here is a battle. Do you think that there should be soul in that kind of discussions? Well, the soul should be present in communication between people. But what you are talking about today, do you think discussion should be focusing only on the facts,
Здесь на площадке.
or it should be based on emotions? Well, I think that it's best to view the battle here on the site. Well, then not everything is lost if people who are in the digital business believe that soul still means a lot. It's wonderful because it's something that I think is missing these days. I'm looking at global trends. I'm not talking about our country only, but I'm looking at global trends, and I see this division of the digital flows, the new digital capabilities, new communication capabilities, and the fight to maintain the traditional forms of everything, of communicating, doing, doing business as well. So I, it's not good to exist between the two extremes. It would be wonderful if we could get the best out of the two worlds, for the digital not to dominate, for us not to be on the road towards Orwell, all the dystopian scenarios. But on the other hand, I would like to be able to save on things that can be saved on, not at the expense of the really important things. I'm all in favor of a hybrid, but I don't like the word hybrid. I'm all in favor of harmonization.
Продолжительное время.
Well, I can't but agree with you. COVID has been with us for a long time, but at the same time,
Оно вроде бы
I mean, people are away from you and still you can communicate. And it gives the satisfaction of achieving the results, but the satisfaction is momentarily. But tomorrow, the day after tomorrow, whether you are together, whether together you stay on the same level, so to say, to continue your cooperation today and tomorrow and the day after tomorrow. COVID created fantastic opportunities for communication and to save time. And on the one hand, it's wonderful because people who are separated by borders, by distances, who cannot come together, they still could talk to each other. This created great opportunities for the mass media and for the reporters who could not travel, but still they could interview the guests and everything. But this is a double-edged sword, and many people tend to forget about it, and sometimes they don't even think about it. They do not remember about it. This led to the increase in the amount of information. Yes, exactly. And the information market,
Фукуяма называл это информационным
Fukuyama called it the information village, then the information newsroom.
глобальным
The information market became so global, and the speed of information emergence reached cosmic speeds. But humans stay the same. We are developing the skills, but we can't perceive. Well, exactly. People cannot perceive, they cannot absorb that much information, they cannot process that much information. And the effect that was achieved was opposite. Too much information
ощущение на основе фактов.
leaves people without solid ground. People cannot perform fact checking using their own resources. Even if the information was already checked, it's difficult to come up with your opinion because there is too much information. There is the journalist's point of view, there is the opinion leader's point of view, there is the politician's point of view. Here are the opinions of other people who are not professional media personas, but they have experience, they have the expertise, and they become the magnet that attracts the attention of people who are looking to shape their own point of view. And in totality, this generated an opposite effect: disappointment, frustration, distrust, and complete feeling of being lost, or sometimes some
Неприятие в принципе
uh,
медиасферы.
inacceptance of the media sphere. These processes are quite curious. It feels like a circle is drawn around you, and it's difficult to get out of it. All your movements are within those set borders. Even if we save time, even if there is some effect, we still lose something important. To go back to this idea of harmonization.
Мир цифровой — это мир технологический, прежде
The digital world is a world of technology. Technologies organize everything that we have around us and sometimes even on us and in us. Speaking about the world of technology, it is global, it is one. That's what we thought. That's what we thought before. Your first question was about
Да, она
digital sovereignty
суверенитет.
or information independence. It is known under these two names. We used to think, and that is one of the forecasts that I made about 5 years ago, and it came true. You can look up my interviews. I was speaking at different digital platforms. I participated in discussions, and I was saying that today we live, and that was 5 or 6 years ago, we live in the time when there are no borders in the digital environment. And I was saying, look, for us to move in space,
В физическом пространстве.
and I mean the physical space, the real life,
В любом случае,
we
нам
need
нужны паспорта.
visas, we need passports, we need IDs, we need um,
Упрощено.
documents,
Нужны проездные
we need
документы,
travel
визы и так
documents,
далее,
tickets,
транспорт, ну и так далее.
transportation,
Цифра
etc.,
позволяет
etc. The
перемещаться во
digital
времени, в пространстве.
environment enables us to move in space and in time in the information flows in different spheres without any limits.
Это была тенденция где-то примерно
And more than that, in the
когда
last 10 years, there was this trend when digital technologies appeared that enabled translation. Using online translation functions or online translation was embedded into a particular platform. And that was the last barrier that
цифровую
объединиться в глобальный
would not let us become one, become united. So all barriers were removed, even the most difficult languages in recent years were incorporated into the social media, etc. Well, speaking about Telegram, they got stuck. They need to introduce translation into Telegram as soon as possible. And I was talking about this to their representatives on many occasions. It is something very necessary these days.
уникальностью момента.
So I was saying that we enjoy the uniqueness of the moment, and I made a forecast that is coming true today, unfortunately. Alas, I was saying it's not going to last because this real freedom, true freedom,
Не должны. Те, кто хочет контролировать
is not affordable. It would not be let happen by the humankind. And that's what we are observing today. Is the internet is being segmented, and this is not being done by individual states that want to maintain their political, economic, or financial agenda, but we see it on the part of those who created the internet space as common first. And this is amazing, really, it's surprising. First, they created this common shared space. It was everywhere, it was ubiquitous. Like in the United States, they are the forefathers of the very idea of the internet global coverage, the digital giants, and everything. And they themselves became those who started the reverse policy,
интернета,
the segmenting of the internet, control over digital platforms,
возможность нажимать вот эту красную кнопку
the ability to press the red button
и модерирование,
целых
безусловно.
of activating, deactivating, and moderation as well. The red button of disabling whole countries and technologies. Exactly. That was early 2000, end of 1990s, early 2000s. Remember when the internet
Игрок в виде Китая.
uh,
Миллиарда человек
was
на
made
секундочку, да?
bigger via the accession of China.
Как вы помните, такой
Да.
великий
1.5 billion people, and immediately they built the great Chinese firewall in the internet, so that from the Western world's perspective to introduce complete control over the internet, but from the perspective of China, they did it in order to build the system of control and regulation and language and technologies. Exactly. And then using and creating the sovereignty to connect to the global network. And look now how they traded places. Today, China is open. You can come with your products. Yes, there are some restrictions, there are nuances, but on the other hand, they aren't trying to oust anyone from their market, but it is the countries and the corporations that regionally were talking about the need for a global approach who are pursuing that policy of exclusion. To go back to your other question, independence, sovereignty, why, what for, do we need it? Of course, it is necessary. I separate these things. I believe that the process that today the United States leave to segment and to censure the internet is not part of independence and sovereignty. They are two different processes. As countries, as peoples, as communities, we must have a digital sovereignty, but no country shall be able to censure and to moderate others' space based on its own perspective. So, what is digital sovereignty and digital independence? I will talk about it not as a person from the digital world or someone representing the digital business, but as a person who works and acts in the field of international information. Well, there are many different aspects to the notion, but let's just identify a few. Your own technologies basis platforms that would be supported with domestic software and hardware and technologies, your own technologies that or technologies that are not 100% dependent on other countries or corporations. And the second aspect that comes to mind is legislation. Legislation that regulates flexibly, rigidly, softly, well, depending on the circumstances, that regulates the situation in the online mode, protecting its own digital environment where necessary, protecting it from the aggression from the outside, and enabling connections with other environments wherever it's beneficial. You talked about platforms, value-added platforms, and you also mentioned legislation and regulation. Oh, well, of course. They are, well, as our partners, English-speaking partners call it, it's the in-between. The digital security, cybersecurity, they are regulated technologies, and it can't be otherwise because they are prone with crime. They can be abused for criminal purposes, and crime leads to punishment. Regulation ensures that crime is punished and technology can be used as a tool of crime. So our country is the one that at the end of 1990s, early 2000s, incorporated the very topic of international information security into the agenda of the United Nations. I'm talking about the General Assembly resolutions, various task forces and expert working groups. And we pursued this work along many different vectors when it was not yet a global trend. And of course, it was not yet priority, the greatest priority of the UNO. But understanding the trend,
С одной стороны, глобализации процесса,
knowing that
все и вся.
that
Эксперты
knowing, understanding the trend, understanding what's happening,
поняли, что эту тему нужно ставить под контроль
our experts did the sums and realized that it must be put under the control,
правовое регулирование, чтобы этим
and that there should be some there should be some global control and regulation, so that this field is not managed by individual corporations or governments in cooperation with corporations, but to make it all transparent and legitimate, so that there is some international legal basis for it. To go back to information security and its role in the modern digital world, it feels like there are three layers. There is the hardware, a computer or server, then there is the operating system and the programs that run on it, and there is cyber security, which controls the hardware and the software run on the hardware. And there is another link, but if the operating system and the hardware belongs to the same vendor, then or it comes from the same part of the world, you can't control it very well. But you forgot another component, a very important component: a person, a human who operates the hardware and the software.
без этого главного звена
And without this most important link, everything else is secondary. It's the human who should analyze and calculate and see the risks and counter the risks, and to create the agenda that would ensure potential threats, evasion. Humans, not just individual experts, but there should be a government system in charge of it, not just one institution or department, but a network of departments that are governing the digital environment and information security at a professional level. They must cooperate and they must take decisions jointly. It is a big infrastructure. I'm looking at the international experience and the reality of today. This is key. The sense, meaning or sense is derived or shaped by humans. Artificial intelligence, fortunately, is not yet that advanced. So meanings are shaped, they are defined by humans, by professionals. And then everything else that you mentioned is secondary.
Очень важный смысл в том, чтобы
In the digital agenda, one of the biggest meanings is that things that are
не могли
unacceptable for humans or businesses or industries or governments would not happen as a result of a hack or a
это
hacker's attack.
утопия.
Inadmissible. It should be impossible. But this is a utopia. It can't be. You know, like in Russian fairy tales, there is the sword that kills anyone. Like you own the sword and you can kill anyone, any enemy, and the shield protects everyone and everything. So these two things are
Остановить развитие технологий.
opposing things. We must stop the development of the technology if we do not want to get these threats. If someone who is outside of this digital environment would listen to this dialogue, probably that person would not even understand us, even though we speak Russian. But in theory and in practice, we understand what we talk about, and it's a big philosophical question whether we need to provide total freedom to the technology development if it can lead humankind into a dead end. But here, even at this wonderful forum, will not be able to answer this question.
Моральные и правовые
The moral and the legal framework must be set from the start, definitely, but you cannot always prevent the events from happening. You can't always prevent new challenges from emergence. You need to calculate the risks, you need to try to avert them, but you understand that humans are very inquisitive and they are curious. They will want to find out. But I agree that prevention must be built into the framework.
прогресс, если мы начнем останавливать
Technological
кибербезопасность,
progress, if we start stopping cybersecurity, I mean, if we try to stop if we try to control everything, it will stop technological progress. But today, cybersecurity lags behind the progress. Human thought is in the driving seat, while security is in the passenger seat. And we see that over here we've got this cyber battle
ситуации реально
Вопрос.
where we simulate various scenarios. Don't you think that humans matter? Humans must calculate the risks. Humans,
Этой истории.
people, must be
Человек должен
active
понимать,
participants
смысле
of the
частота
process.
удобства,
Humans must decide whether the
понимать, к чему это
speed
может привести.
is balanced out with risks.
Человек свободу
Humans must understand the consequences. We must not
но это его
leave
выбор.
people
Но при
without
этом я
a
считаю,
choice. If people want to take risks, it's their choice. But I still believe in the power of education. People need to be educated about the risks and they should be able to take decisions. Maybe they will sacrifice speed, but they will keep the basis that is truly valuable. This choice, it must be it must be the result of education. You should not prohibit, you should not stop, you should not ban, but through education, through information, you should demonstrate to every user or to every corporation that probably you do not need to have fewer buttons on the phone, or probably this particular action can take 5 seconds instead of 1.5 seconds. Probably you don't need to speed up things. Maybe you can stay within the safer current frameworks. Progress, the word progress today is creating meanings. Although progress is just a movement, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's movement towards the better world. It depends on your destination that you want to reach. But we start to take technological progress to mean a 100% positive goal because it's more convenient, it's comfortable, it's a matter of comfort. Yes, and it's a huge discussion whether comfort should prevail over everything else, not just security, but everything else, like the soul, preserving the soul, preserving the personality. It's a big question mark. I'm all in favor of harmonization. In some things, it is essential, like organizing or like medical or like surgeries, remote doctors consultations. And sometimes it's a whim that leads to more problems. It's something that we've been discussing until now. The increase in the speed of information dissemination kills the quality of information. You understand?
Знаете, у нас в России
Yes, I do.
много головастых
And in Russia, we have a lot of brainy guys and girls. Yes, guys and girls, exactly. And yesterday here, with other guests, we were saying that Russian guys and girls are winning various competitions for coders around the world. It means that we have a very strong engineering potential inside the country, but also to bring this potential to other countries. Do you think that we have opportunities for well, we need the opportunities inside the countries. There are so many different priorities today that must be addressed through technological engineering solutions. Inside the country, we don't have our own video hosting platforms. And it's a huge segment of information security. I don't know. And information security, it touches upon all aspects of life: economy, services, banking, education. We do not have a normal video hosting platform.
дискуссии, которые ведутся. Ну так
I'm listening to these discussions, but we've been hearing the same ideas repeated over and over for many years. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs and also on a private level as users who compare the means and the goals and who have an ability to compare foreign products with the Russian analogs. For many years, we've been pleading for normal video hosting with good information protection and also good ideology as well that would be mutually beneficial for the platform and for the user. Do you think we'll have it one day?
Все возможности есть.
We've been talking about it for years, and there are all the opportunities you see, and there is the demand. There is also the urgency of the day. We see the blockings, the shut-offs
Это не только российские
that
СМИ.
are no longer targeted, not only Russian media and Russian politicians that are being cut off, but even individuals, private individuals who are being shut down. And they could have never become a part of the global information world the same level as the representatives of other Western countries were, because moderation was different, because the moderation engine worked differently towards representatives of different countries. And although, yes, it's based on technology, but still the rules were set by humans driven by a particular ideology. This is what we need, and that's what we don't need. We need to create it. You see, I don't know how many more times it must be repeated. And the important thing is we need to stop, and it's a matter that is ideologically, politically, culturally very important. We need to stop protecting the Western platforms and websites and hosting platforms, and it exists, and it exists at a very high political level. I see it, I read about it, but I don't think it's relevant at this point. The Western monopolies act outside of the rules. Western monopolies discriminate us, and more, they act aggressively towards our country and towards our people. So first, we must create our base, and then if someone wants to, for whatever reason, wants to advocate for Western platforms and digital platforms, to protect them, to lobby for them, well, it will be their personal business. But today we must stop it, and and I have already mentioned lobbying and protectionism. We must stop roofing, as we say it in Russia, the Western platforms, digital platforms in our country.
Безопасности
In cybersecurity,
замену зарубежных решений на российские решения.
foreign products are being
Замена.
substituted with domestic products at an accelerated rate. You know about the presidential decree that speaks about 2025. We talked to developers today at the conference, and I see in their eyes a confidence that it will happen. It must happen. It must happen. It must happen. Yes, I'm telling you that I don't see any doubt in their eyes. They are confident that it's going to happen. It's just that the process of deploying new solutions, it takes time, a year or 2 years. Accelerate, intensify. These are the right words. It must be done at full speed and at full capacity.
Желание есть, политическая воля есть,
There is political will, there is decisiveness, there is
чтобы не было
the wish, there are laws already. The important thing that lobbying
на нашем
doesn't act as a decelerator.
западные технологии и так далее, и так далее. Ведь во многом это
Lobbying for Western technologies.
это же и
To a large extent, well, actually, it's something that was killing domestic competition. When domestic developer, when the domestic manufacturer, all those brainy guys and gals, like you were saying, they could not make it for competition. They were competing against a very wealthy monster that were protected on all sides, including by political lobbying. Yes, and the competition was not on technical terms. Very often they were on terms of advertising budgets. Exactly, exactly. We already have a lot of good solutions. Maybe some are built with components from Asia, but still, many of the software. The software especially, they can't even advertise for it. Look at the magazines that are even if it's a franchisee, but they are registered as a Russian mass media, but they can't even get an advertisement published in those magazines. You know how much one paragraph of advertising information costs in those publications. But and they are not expert journals. They are mass market magazines. It means that these magazine publications are not. They don't have a narrow specialization. I mean, a wide audience to buy, to install for the corporations. You need to get advertised, not to be present at conferences or at the fairs only, but to be marketed, to be advertised directly, indirectly. But it means money, huge money. And the money is big not only because there are associated costs. No, you set the price because you are a certain price, because you are a monopoly and you are a foreign monopoly, and you set such a high price that no company, especially young developing company, cannot afford.
Работа, связанная с стартапами, это же все
And
прекрасно,
startups
как
as
нам
well.
рассказывали, да, наши, так
We
называемые
were
партнеры,
told by our
ввели этот
so-called
термин
international
технологии стартапной
partners, they
поддержки, и
introduced
оно во
this
многом сходится
terminology,
с то, что
startup
здесь.
support, but
Многие
what
компании
it boiled
говорили,
down to, it
что
boiled down to the
продукты
killing of small
занимаются
companies by
продукты не для
uh,
развития,
by these companies being bought,
перенос в
mergers.
развитие той
Well,
технологии, которая может пойти на
Конкуренция.
they were bought
меньшие
in order to stop the
площади.
development of the technology that could
Поэтому
potentially
ваша
compete with the
проблема
technology that
связана с
these big
Министерством
corporations
иностранных
already
дел.
owned. So,
Это
I mean,
не наша
these
проблема, и вы
areas,
должны этим
they are
заниматься. Но
not related to the operations of the
рядом с
Ministry of
этим
Foreign
у нас
Affairs. We have other relevant
все-таки
ministries and departments for this.
международное
But as I
партнерство
am
и той
someone who
самой
works
цифровой среды,
at
а
the
не Министерство дел,
crossroads
которое
of the
имеет
international
информацию,
relations and
цифровое мышление,
information, and this crossroads can be called digital
Министерство
diplomacy. One of the first, probably you know, that we were one of the first to
наше
create
присутствие в
a
соцсетях мировых, в наших
presence, a
одним из
very
тех,
diverse
кто
presence in the
учил
social
наших
media and
компаний
everywhere. One
быть
of the first to support
отечественными производителями в
domestic
киберсреде.
manufacturers in the cyberspace.
Рассказать о том, что
Yes,
вы
the
делаете
industry
Задачи
feels a lot of support from the
кибербезопасности
state in IT and cybersecurity. Yes, but we started doing this back in 2011, 2012 at a very high level. The Minister of Foreign Affairs, Sergei Lavrov, personally took part in the opening of our accounts in Vkontakte and at other platforms. We used every opportunity of our ministry and of the headquarters and of the foreign representative offices to promote the development of our platforms everywhere. Well, I mentioned only one platform. In fact, there are many platforms like that, and the platforms know about it, about our presence. We communicate with them closely. Thank you very much for this interview. Yes, well, actually, we received a prize of RUNET. When was it? That was 2013 or 2014. We received the prize for the network of our presence online presence. It was a breakthrough moment for us. So I'm speaking to you with pain in my heart and with hope for a better future. Thank you.